I am not the beacon of light. I am just here in Beacon Hill. This is El Profe Nito, and with me today we have.
Steve Wells. I'm a volunteer at El Centro de la Raza in Beacon Hill.
And welcome, Steve, to our episode of Molcajete and Flowers. So, for our listeners out there, volunteer of El Centro, can you tell us a little bit more about how you came about to El Centro and how long you've been here?
Well, I've always admired it from the very beginning. I think the history of El Centro is amazing. The beginnings of it, especially, and all the programs that are going on now. And in 2018, I've been on the mailing list forever, the email list, and there was a call for volunteers. And I'm like, well, maybe instead of just going to to the event, I should volunteer. So I volunteered for Cinco de Mayo, and it was such a great day, and the other volunteers were wonderful. The staff was so great and welcoming, and I'm like, I want to work here. So I ended up having 4 years, almost 5 years of working here through a program for retraining seniors run by the government. And that was amazing. And when that was over, I wanted to stick around. So now I volunteer mostly with the facilities department, working on whatever event is coming up and whatever other project needs work on. I'm glad to jump in. I've got plenty of time. I have two other part-time jobs, so but I spend most of my work hours here as a volunteer, and I love it.
Nice. And last week, we were able to participate in the Comcast Day, Volunteer Day. And that's when we sat down, and during lunch, after a morning of shoveling mulch, we got some lunchtime, some burritos. But you started sharing a little bit about your own educational background and how you yourself received the GED. And so this is how we kind of came about, and we started discussing, and we invited you and see if you could share a little bit about your experience with the GED and how that became an option for you.
Well, then I have to discuss my experience with high school, which was horrible, very abusive, and I was bullied so much. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't even ride the bus. I started walking to school and walking home, which was about 3 miles.
Was that here in Seattle?
No, that was in Edmonds. Uh, uh, because I was more than in like the hallways, I was really harassed on the buses. So I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I was getting injured, and teachers weren't paying attention, and neither were my parents. And I was like, I'm out of here. There was too much happening in the real world that I wanted to participate in, mostly in the university district. The anti-war movement was going strong still. I'm talking about like 1972 and 1973.
And can you paint us a picture about what was going on, what you were seeing at that time?
Well, demonstrations against the war, feminists first starting their marches in Seattle, the beginnings of the gay rights movement. The Black Panthers were, organizing, as well as Chicanos on campus at the UW. And it seemed like the center of the universe to me. And I couldn't stand being in this high school where nobody was even talking about the war. And it was like, how can I? Anyway, I couldn't study there. I couldn't feel comfortable in the classrooms there. And so I took the GED at Edmonds Community College, and it was a totally positive experience for me. The woman who did the testing was incredibly positive, told me that she was really impressed with my scores, that and I told her what I had hoped for was to go to community college and then get into an art school, and which my parents did not support, and she helped me. I don't remember her name, but I wish I did. But she was so encouraging, and she gave me all sorts of information about getting into one of the community colleges in Seattle, and I ended up at Seattle Central Community College, which is now just Seattle Central College, and I finished up with whatever requirements I didn't have from high school to get into Cornish College of the Arts, which also included doing a portfolio to get there.
And what kind of portfolio? Where was your art direction?
Mostly drawing and sculpture, but I ended up, because I was, independent and financially struggling, I just thought I need to really plan for the future here. So I ended up in their graphic design program, which was incredible. And so for me, getting the GED was one of the best things I've ever done for myself. It got me out of a situation where I felt like my life was threatened constantly, and into community college in an urban environment where I felt like I could actually learn without fearing for my life.
So did you make the move during high school from Edmonds to Seattle, or were you commuting?
I ran away from home.
You did? Okay. And how old were you?
I was 17. The first time I was 16.
Okay. And how long did you run away?
First time about 6 months, and then I kind of felt forgiving. I couldn't get along with my father, and but so I went back for a very short time, and it's like, nah, I can't do this.
And do you think being around the demonstrations or seeing that kind of helped you or encouraged you to kind of take your own
Absolutely
stand?
I met people who, even though they were maybe 2 or 3 years older than me or more, I felt like I'd found peers for the first time, and it was fantastic. I ended up making friends and finding a household of people to live with.
And how was that? Coming about, making those connections, and then have you seen that before, or was it kind of like an eye-opening experience?
Totally eye-opening. It's like,
and what changes did you see in yourself?
Well, I became a fairly outspoken socialist, and after a couple more years, I also came out as being gay, and that was a revolution for me. And the gay movement was just getting started then. I was actually at the very first gay pride event in Seattle at the International Fountain in Seattle Center.
And how was that?
It was fantastic. There were like maybe 50 people.
Okay.
And a lot of us dressed up real wild, and we played around in the fountain, and the press kind of loved it. And built from there. The next year it was in Occidental Square in Pioneer Square. And now, what was it last year? 400,000 people? That's a big change.
Yeah. And what changes do you see that are either positive or negative from where the first pride to the prides we have now? We're coming up in June, and so
it's the 50th anniversary for Seattle. It's a revolution in a way, and to see the entire city celebrating Pride, and going to Pride nowadays is so different because there's so many straight people there with their kids.
Right.
And I love it. They love it. It's the most colorful day of the year in Seattle. The diversity is amazing.
Right.
And the fact that people are coming here from Australia and France to go to Pride Seattle.
Yes.
It's just amazing. Especially compared to those first 5 years where, if we had 500 people, it's like, yay.
So, and then coming to that realization, seeing those changes, and then did that help you then what made you realize that you needed to go back to school and needed to finish the GED? Was that after meeting your peers and having some time in Seattle? And then what was the moment where you thought to yourself, okay, I think I need to return and get this done?
The friends that I made definitely influenced me because most of them were in college or had graduated from college, and they were encouraging of my interests. And I really wanted to go to art school. And and I had to take those steps in community college to get there. And I wouldn't have gotten there without getting that GED first. And the really positive attitude of the woman who was doing the test. She was incredibly encouraging, and very supportive of my reasons for doing it.
And was that something new for you, as someone who probably had a position of in some sort of way, like of power of working in education? Was that something different, or was that another encouraging person in your life, or was that?
I had 3 teachers who encouraged my creativity, and one teacher who I trusted his political beliefs, and he was aware of what was happening in the world and teaching that instead of what most of the other teachers were doing. He was an anti-war activist. So that helped, but I couldn't balance that with an unhappy home life and an physically abusive environment at that high school. I mean, I was injured in the hallways,
and all the adults looked the other way. It was don't ask, don't tell.
Didn't happen.
Okay.
You broke your own glasses.
Right. And when did that start? Did you realize something was different, or when did the abuse start happening, or the click that maybe I'm a little different then?
It was all the name calling. And I was, I admit it, I was a scrawny little sissy. I didn't really realize it. I didn't think about myself that way, but I was one of the smallest boys in my junior high school and high school. And small kids get victimized.
Right.
And not just for being gay or being perceived as being gay, because they're an easy victim. Fun fact, by a year and a half after leaving high school, I grew 4 inches and stopped getting migraine headaches.
Oh, okay.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. When you lift the oppressions of the people around you, see, you can grow.
Exactly.
Se Puede Academy is a youth education and empowerment program offered by el Centro de la Raza, a community organization. Se Puede Academy aims to support and inspire young people to achieve academic success, develop leadership skills, and become positive contributors to their communities, focusing on promoting cultural pride and fostering a sense of community among its participants. The program provides a range of educational services and activities designed to empower students and promote their personal academic growth. For the most up-to-date information on the program, I recommend visiting El Centro de la Raza's official website or following us on Instagram, ECDLR_Se Se Puede Academy. Once again, ECDLR_Se Se Puede Academy.
And also, you said you had this desire for art. And when did that start coming about? And when did you start leaning into it? Was that also like an outlet for you?
Oh, definitely. I would say by 4th and 5th grade, I was getting comments from teachers that I had talent. My 7th grade art teacher told me I was the best student he'd ever had. But nobody else was encouraging me to go that direction, except for one of my grandmothers,
Oh.
which was amazing.
How did she encourage you?
She called me an artist.
Oh, nice.
She just, but long distance. She was in California. But anyway, I got a lot of encouragement from teachers, but not from family. My father said he would not pay for anything Mickey Mouse as art school.
And what did they want you to do? What was on their minds? Just not art.
My mother was kind of one of those silent mothers who, had to follow her husband's wishes. Boy, did that change when Dad died. He was an arch Republican and completely supportive of the Vietnamese War, and which I call the war against the Vietnamese people. And politically, he was my opposite, and we were nemesis.
If it's not too much prying, did you kind of come back together later in life?
In really great ways.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It was years later, but we became buddies.
Okay.
It was kind of amazing. He was going to vote for Obama. And unfortunately, he passed away that year.
Okay.
But yeah, and then, my mom completely came out as a Democrat. And rather
grow.
Outspoken.
People grow. People grow over time. And so for some of our students who may find the GED as an alternative option, it's unfortunate, but a lot of the experiences of students in schools of bullying isn't always unique. Some of our students have opened up about their own situations in schools. And so what would you say to those students who may be thinking about GED as an alternative, or any words of encouragement or motivation for students? Do they, maybe they're in that moment of everything seems to be going wrong. How can something as a GED help change those things?
Well, if you're in an abusive school situation, I would, it's hard, but I would just start telling people that you're being hurt and you're being held back. Tell your parents, tell your brothers and sisters if you have any, tell your teachers, or go right to the principal. You have the right to do that. It takes a lot of guts because you don't want to be the tattletale. That was my hang up. I didn't want to be that guy, mostly because I thought I'd get beat up even more. So it didn't feel safe to talk about it. And, but I would encourage you to get out of there and get into an environment where you can be yourself and do what you want to do, study what you want to study, and go for your interest. And it gets better. And it'll be tough, especially when you're on your own and you gotta, like, pay rent and do all that. But it gets better. And you'll make friends that are actually peers.
That's the thing, too, of something I realized as well. Once you kind of remove yourself from those kind of tough situations in high school and just leave your environments that are kind of tend to be negative sometimes. And you do find those peers who you kind of realize and start changing your mentality and your outlook on life as well. And that's very helpful.
Yeah, it was so great to find people who were talking about what I was talking about.
Yes. And that click, that moment. And I think, when you're coming around the demonstrations and you start discussing with those people and you start realizing, like, oh, there are others out there, not in my immediate upbringing, who think similarly to me.
And, oh, look, there's 10,000 of them on the freeway right now. This is fun.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, we'll join you. I'll be the 2001 as well.
That was a great day. Shutting down I-5.
Oh, when was that? How was that?
Was that? I don't know, 72 or 73. I was going to demonstrations in the U District behind my parents' back.
And let's see, for students, maybe now that you've been around El Centro for some time, are there other resources or possibilities that students can find here? A lot of our students are between 18 and 21. And sometimes, at Se Puede, we kind of emphasize the GED. But there are other things going on in their lives. We have some students who are parents, young parents. We have students who are kind of moving from home to home. Some who are moving from home to home and their parents. And so how else can El Centro help those students?
Well, there's the after-school programs. I don't know if there's an age limit on those. Maybe it might be 18, I don't know. But they do so much and they have a lot of fun. That's upstairs here. Is there one at the Federal Way?
We are hoping, anticipating, maybe one day.
There's a lot of ways to get involved with other people, in positive ways, like volunteering on events, and I'd recommend doing that. It was kind of a life-changing thing for me.
Was it?
Yeah, I was really upset about the world in 2018. What was happening in this country and around the world. It was so depressing to me to see our society regressing back towards the 1950s. And so...
And how did volunteering help you kind of get through that?
It was just to be around people who have a positive outlook on the world and are progressive thinkers and who are doing work to help people instead of just, I don't know, living a selfish life. I loved being around people like that. And I found it here.
Yeah, some work of selflessness is a good dose of medicine when you're kind of feeling upset. I agree with you on that.
Just to be around people who are excited about something.
Yeah.
Instead of being really down on everything.
Right. Going back to a quick question, how long did the GED take you, and what kind of studying methods or what kind of things did you do to kind of get you through it?
Well, I was thinking about it and I couldn't really remember, It was like 1974 or 73. I can't even remember that. I don't remember. I knew I had a handbook that like described each of the tests. I don't even know how it works today.
Yeah, there's 4 exams. There's a language arts, social studies, science, and math.
Okay. Math was the one I got the lowest grade in.
That's the one that a lot of people tend to be afraid of.
But also rely on your memory and what you already know. It's pretty much what I did. I kind of winged it. Also, if you don't pass it the first time, there's always the next time.
There's 3 attempts for each one. And even then, you just have to wait 60 days, and then you're able to give it another try. So it's not the end of the world.
And I bet now there's tutorials on YouTube and wherever.
Yep.
And,
There's lots of material out there. There's also sessions with El Profe Nito in person or virtual. Pretty flexible. Our schedule is on our Instagram page. So if you ever want to come and see and kind of find a time that works for you. We also do late nights on the weekdays and virtual mornings on Saturday mornings.
That's great.
That are optional because we know our students are working on the weekday and also with their families. So we try finding opportunities where they could come in and ask.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys are lucky.
Thank you.
There were just so few alternatives in the early 70s. Even in Seattle, there were 2 alternative high schools that were just getting started.
Any last advice or tidbits for the podcast episode or for our students? Where can we find you and what can we ask you when we do see you?
Well, I just encourage you, if you're wanting to get a GED, do it and feel good about it and move on and figure out what you want to do and go for it. And, I'm here. I can't really say what my hours are because it's here and there or when I'm needed. And when there's an event coming up, that's when I'm here a lot. So I'm looking forward to Dia de los Muertos in October. October will be a very busy month for volunteering here at El Centro because we're going to really beautify the building and there'll be lots of paper flower parties.
Ofrendas.
Which are really fun.
Yeah.
And we'll be putting up ofrendas all through the upstairs hallway. Last year was amazing. Lots of marigolds.
Yeah. I've been here for some field trips in the past, and it's a nice thing to see and kind of take your time and look at each one of them.
Yeah.
And the amount of time and effort people put into them is really a nice thing to see. I appreciate. Thank you for your time, Steve.
Thanks for asking.
And thank you for sharing your experience with the GED and kind of how it became an alternative outlook for yourself. And anytime you want to come back to Molcajete Flowers, we'd love to have you again, Steve. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
This is El Profe Nito, and we are out.
Se Puede Academy is a youth education and empowerment program offered by El Centro de la Raza, a community organization. Se Puede Academy aims to support and inspire young people to achieve academic success, develop leadership skills, and become positive contributors to their communities, focusing on promoting cultural pride and fostering a sense of community among its participants. The program provides a range of educational services and activities designed to empower students and promote their personal academic growth. For the most up-to-date information on the program, I recommend visiting El Centro de la Raza's official website or following us on Instagram, ECDLR_Se Puede Academy. Once again, ECDLR_Se Puede Academy.